Welcome to Destination Freedom. Glad you're here. Not sure if I can see who's on the call tonight. I don't know how I can see that. I can't. So, um, anyway, let's see if I can determine how many people are on the call. Let me see participants. Let's see if that's going to see there. Anyway, maybe nobody's on the call. Um, but anyway, we'll have to see if we get the chat. Let's see if I can determine. There's a chat. All right, that's cool. Anyway, glad you're here and like to be able to talk a little bit about some things that are on my mind. Some of the things that came from our last video and some of the people that enjoyed Greg on our call. And that was kind of cool. I'm doing this from my front yard here, and but I am glad that. So just some of the things that are going on with Destination Freedom. We still have no internet in our office. There is a hint of internet that's not worth having. We can barely check our email or log into things. I mean, any type of size of a file or anything that we have to upload or download, it's just useless. So most of that work I ended up doing here at the house, or Alma, my assistant, is doing in her place. So we're really not up to full speed at the office. But I did get an email from the cable company, and they have somebody on it this week. So I'm thankful for that. And so I'm looking forward to doing these at the office. Our new digs. This is. And so that'll be kind of fun when we're in the office and doing that. And then I'll have some of the back office. It'll be interesting to see if we have any back noise, the roads out there, and see lovely motorcycles that drive by, silently enjoying the countryside. I always think that's funny. But I don't have a headphone on, so we're going with just the ambiance in the computer. So hopefully this sound will be all right, and I'll speak up so that you can hear me. But anyway, we are still working on securing our dates and location of our class in Montana. We will follow up on that. And once we have that, we will put it up on the website, and we will make that available for people to register for that live class in Montana. It looks like it's a go, but we're going to have to confirm all that. And I will have that done. I'm looking to have that done tomorrow. So I thought I was going to be out of the office tomorrow. It'll be a full day in the office. We had a change of plans, and so I'm thankful for that. And so we got a lot of backlog of work that's on our plate. Today we did a lot of passport reviews and things like that with clients, and so that's I'm thankful for. But the other thing that I want to say is that we are getting caught up in a lot of our communication, and so that is great. Thanks to Alma, who's been a real a help and a blessing for for Destination Freedom, for American Supreme Law, and all that. And my son is on his game, and that's good, and I'm thankful for that too. So if it gets too noisy in the background, I'll grab some headphones. But you're going to do a live broadcast for the front. You get the bird chirping back here, and you got the, we don't have any planes flying over, so we get the plane flying over and everything. So we just want the full spectrum of audio sound here on Destinations Freedoms Live. Now, one of the reasons that I do like the nature of this image on the laptop and being on YouTube, that's kind of cool. We also have a BitChute account, and if for any reason we don't find ourselves here on YouTube for whatever reason, we'll continue this stuff on BitChute. So anytime that you can go over there and subscribe and log in and all that, by all means, please do. It helps if there's any problem or trouble, especially after having someone as passionate as Greg on our last video. We'll see how that goes. So, so anyway, that's part of it, and then we got a bunch of. Let me see if I have it here. Let me see if I wonder if I have. I did get some emails. My assistant passed on some emails, and I wanted to handle some of that. And then I'll get into. Oh no, you know what I'll do is I'll get into that in a minute. I just want to touch on our subject matter: is how's the federal government upholding the Constitution while Americans are waiving their rights. If you don't have knowledge of things, there's no way for you to really defend or to deal with a matter, because there's different kinds of knowledge that that people have. One is things that I know that I know. I mean, I know that it's daylight still, and I can see, and I know that there's a bird chirping behind me, and all. I know that my wife's inside, and I know, I'm here, and I know we're on YouTube and things like these. There's a lot of information that we know. I know how to do certain things, and then there's what I don't know, and I don't know how to. I was going to say how to work. I don't know how to manage my time better than I am. I'm still working through and trying to figure out. But there's a whole there's more things that I don't know how to do and what to do than what I do know. Those are things that I know I don't know. Then there's an area of knowledge that most of us struggle in, and that is what I don't know that I don't know. Okay. And that's the stuff that's in our blind sides and where we miss it. And I would say that for a lot of Americans, they don't know that there are two types of citizens in the United States. And they don't even know that they don't know that that's a possibility. And until you're introduced to those concepts, you live your life and do things accordingly. But another thing that I think that people can't imagine when they look at the District of Columbia, our union's government, and they know, most everyone knows, at least that's what I'm making up about it, how funky it is that they're warmongers, that the corporations have got DC, the money is too much, they're printing money, central bankers are corrupt. Most everyone knows that it is an absolute mess. And most Americans would think or fantasize and then say that they believe that the federal government is not upholding the Constitution, that they're violating it at every point in turn. And then they send people to Washington, and every single person that goes to DC, both elected and not elected, typically will swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. And many elected representatives will swear an oath to uphold the United States Constitution and the state constitution. And so that's pretty common. And it's my guess that most people that take those oaths, most have never read the Constitution, maybe their state or their federal. And if they have even read it once, wouldn't understand it. Where the hell is the average person who's elected going to get an education on the Constitution? And yet, we have an expectation that these people will uphold and abide by the Constitution. Most Americans don't have those standards or understand those things, and yet they have an expectation that their government is going to do that. How many times, shouldn't there be a test that to find out exactly how much they understand the Constitution? But let me just show you just how ignorant people are. And listen, the American people are more ignorant than some of those people in office who, who are supposed to know those matters. Maybe law enforcement. No, because if in a Supreme Court case, and let's make up the idea that the Supreme Court, if there's anybody that knows or understands the Constitution, that the Supreme Court would be the ones that would understand it. But if you want to look at any or every single Supreme Court ruling, without exception, that's not unanimous. That means 5-4, for whatever it is, the majority over the minority, whatever it is, in whatever subject matter you want to say. If somebody was opposing and one party prevailed, wouldn't you believe that the prevailing party was upholding the Constitution? Maybe the minority party understands the Constitution and was saying, no, they don't want to support that, whatever it is, and that the majority don't understand the Constitution or are enemies against the Constitution. And it could be either one or maybe even both. But you can't have a decision that's 5-4 and have 5 Supreme Court justices saying, yes, this is constitutional, or those 5 saying, no, this is not constitutional. And that the 4 get to sit on the court while they either are ignorant of the Constitution, contrary to these guys, or that they are enemies of the Constitution and should be thrown out for violation their oath of office. You cannot reconcile that. It's not okay. And if the legislature, who understands the Constitution even less, isn't going to do anything about it, like the Judiciary Committee I'm talking about the United States Supreme Court, but what I'm saying to you is the truth in every state as well. If they're not impeached immediately, then it doesn't matter what this stupid court rules, right? Thomas Jefferson said, who penned with the rest of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, they said, we hold this truth to be self-evident. When was the last time truth was self-evident to our culture? Okay. That all men are created equal, they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's self-evident. I don't think it's self-evident today. Many people, I'll go into only because I'm looking at our culture. Most people do not understand the difference between a privilege and a right. Most people don't know what a right is. Some people are still calling these things civil rights, not understanding there's no such thing as civil rights. There's only civil privileges, and that there are only natural rights that are divine or that are, from the laws of nature and of nature's God. That's a reality. So based on this, I want you to know that you have it in you to understand the Constitution. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily talking about that you understand every nuance of the Constitution or are an expert of the Constitution. But I'm telling you right now, you can understand the broad strokes of the Constitution and certainly the limited power that the federal government has. If you don't understand taxation, I can promise you will be overtaxed. That is a reality. So that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about federal jurisdiction, okay? And we've talked about this before, and you know that. We've talked about it in many ways, okay? And so there's some broad understandings when you look at the Bill of Rights about certain things, okay? Some of the broad strokes of the Constitution are Article 1 of the Constitution deals with the Congress. Article 2 deals with the president, and Article 3 deals with the courts. That's very simple to understand. In the Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. It should not be called the Bill of Rights. That is just a stupid name. It should have been the Bill of Government Chains, because it isn't a Bill of Rights, because it talks about limitations of the central government. The Ninth Amendment to the Constitution, I could just look it up so I can quote it verbatim. Let me see. No, actually, I actually have a New Hampshire Declaration of Constitution. So yeah, I have it. Forgot I had it in my pocket. The Constitution. Yeah. So in the Constitution, oh yeah, we're gonna go. I just was talking about the Bill of Rights, or we're talking about the first amendments to the Constitution. Yep. So let's see if we can find it here. Here we go. Amendment. I want to go to Amendment 9. Let's just take a look at that. 7, 8, and 9. No, let's see. The Ninth Amendment. Oh, that's the 14th. Sure. Okay, let's see here. That's 15. Here we go. All right, where is it? That's the 12th. There we go. The Ninth Amendment, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are very small. So this is very simple to understand. Here's the Ninth Amendment. It says, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. It's a very simple sentence statement. And so it says the enumeration in the Constitution, or the numbering in the Constitution of certain rights. That means that wherever in the Constitution it's declaring or mentioning a certain right, it says, it shall not be construed or understood. That's what the word construed means. It shall not be understood to deny or disparage others retained by the people. What does that mean? That means that just because the Constitution mentions certain rights, that doesn't mean that that's all the rights you have. And those rights aren't coming to you from the Constitution. There's no such thing as constitutional rights. There are only natural rights. You can say there are constitutionally mentioned rights. You could say there are constitutionally protected rights, except for Constitution doesn't protect rights. People do. And so if people aren't going to uphold the Constitution, it's not going to uphold itself, okay? So the Ninth Amendment makes mention, it was important enough to these framers to let you know that you have other rights. Now, where would you find out about your other rights? Well, certainly the Bible would be one place. But, you know, the idea is that your Creator, however in your faith or whatever it is communicating certain ideas. Rights are those things that are natural and that the Creator has endowed you with, okay? And so it's part of that is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, so the idea is that if you don't have a relationship with the divine, or you don't have understand what natural rights are, and that you can live your life not by the permission of other men, but that you can live it, then that's that you should know, and you're not going to find that in the Constitution. Okay, so and then the 10th Amendment. Now this is the Constitution talking about itself. It says the powers not delegated. So those are powers that are not mentioned in the Constitution. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. So that's an interesting concept that you should understand. The government doesn't have rights. Only people have rights. And just so you know, corporations don't have rights. Corporations are made up of people who have rights. And just because any government person wants to say that a corporation has rights, no such thing as that. The only idea of that you could support is that people make promises, and that we have obligations that they will keep their promises made, especially if they're in writing, i.e. like a contract, okay? So people make declarations and they sign off on paperwork in a certain way. And so when governments allow people to come together and form corporations, then those corporations have certain powers, okay? And the only way that they have rights in not it as a corporation, because if somebody contracts with the corporation, it's really enforced that people are making or breaking contracts, okay? But and I'm not a big fan of corporations, but anyway, my point is about what the Constitution says. The powers not delegated to the United States, now that's the federal government. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it, to the states are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. What is that saying? It's very simple. It says that if the Constitution doesn't delegate certain power to the federal government, it doesn't have that power. Do you understand? And how and where do we find the power delegated to the federal government? Well, we'll find that in Article 1, Section 8. Okay, that's typically where we'll find the power that's been delegated to the central government. Now, there's other things, other limitations in other parts of the Constitution. That's true. But again, typically when you see the power the federal government has is in Article 1, Section 8. Okay. And so that's an important understanding. All right. So if a person doesn't look into the Constitution to see these things and these matters, then they're not going to understand what the federal government has and doesn't have. Okay. So this is easy enough, simple enough for children to understand. And how do I know that children can understand this concept? Because the state of New Hampshire gives out constitutions to third graders for them to have in the third grade. Morons do that kind of thing. Third grade, holy crap, what a bunch of idiots. If you're not preparing high school students for becoming adults and how to restrict their government and hold their government bay, and they don't learn a scratch a thing about protecting liberty and freedom because they're never taught anything about liberty and freedom. And really, if your parents aren't teaching children about don't expect the stupid important, okay? Because my opinion on what you should give the government is you should only give government to make decisions that are frivolous. Okay. What day should we celebrate Halloween? That's a good government decision. Okay. Anything more important than what day we celebrate Halloween or Christmas or whatever shouldn't be in the government's hands because it's too freaking important. Okay. No important issue should be handled by the government. Holy crap. They only have one purpose. The Declaration of Independence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. That's the only power they have. It's the only purpose they have. Of course, the Constitution is delegating power. So you can look in Article 1, Section 8 and see the power that the federal government has. Okay. And some of those things you know of, they have the first thing there is says the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, excises, to pay debts and provide for the common defense. That's the defense of all. Have we delegated them the power to provide the defense for the frickin' world? No. It's just a common, our common defense. And the general welfare. Is that the welfare of the poor or the rich? No. The general welfare. You know what the general welfare is? You know what that clause would cover? Like the care of all. What would that look like? Roads would be the general welfare if there was a need for federal roads. Okay. And we could talk about that some other time. But the general welfare is the welfare of all. It's not the welfare of the poor. Sorry, that's very specific. And of course, it's not the welfare of the rich. That's very specific. But anyway, going on. And they say to borrow money. I wouldn't have delegated that power to them, but they have it. And then it goes on, borrow money on the credit of the United States to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with Indian tribes, sad to say. Then it goes on to a number of other things, okay? And so you can look at these things that, to establish post offices and post roads. They determined that was a central thing and a communication, all that. This is power that was delegated to them years and years and years ago, okay? Back in, after, 1776. But anyway, we're going to come down here. This is in one of the powers they have. Listen to this. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever, over such district not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by a session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States. Here it goes. And to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state, which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. And listen to this, this is important. And to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for the carrying into execution the aforegoing, which we just mentioned, powers, and all other powers vested in the Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. Now that is a constitutional power. They have exclusive legislative authority in all cases whatsoever. That's what you need to understand about the Constitution. That's why, at this point, because of the lack of morality, we don't have, we don't have, I believe, the moral capacity to even go beyond where we are. We are undone as a people, generally speaking. Okay, look, let the facts, show that. So the idea is they have exclusive legislative authority in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 square miles. That's the District of Columbia. That's where they have exclusive legislative authority in all cases whatsoever. And then, as we talk about in my class, when you add the 14th Amendment, which creates a citizenship of a citizen subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's what I just talked about. This is a citizen, a 14th Amendment citizen, that is subject to executive orders and anything else that the federal government has in their federal codes and regulations. They regulate them. And how many times are you asked, are you a United States citizen? If you don't know the definition of the term United States in that given situation, then you might not know what you're agreeing to, that you're being a citizen of the District of Columbia, if you will, a 14th Amendment citizen. When in reality, based upon your habitation domicile, you may be a citizen of one of the states. Because in the Constitution, in Article 4, Section 2, it says that, let me see if I can read it to you, for Article 4, Section 2A, it says, sure, those are in the amendments, the Article 4. Here it is. It says, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. So that's before the 14th Amendment. It only made reference to citizens of each state. That was the only kind of citizens there were in America. And still there are citizens in each state that's based upon habitation and domicile. And many people, recognize that they're a citizen of their state, and yet they're a citizen of the District of Columbia because they answer that question, yes, I'm a U.S. citizen, when the definition of that term is the District of Columbia and or the territories and such as that. The federal government defines U.S. citizen by the 14th Amendment. There are two types of citizens in the United States, and we have federal court cases that recognize that. The states are countries, my friend. These are not, the Union of America America's not a nation. It's never been a nation. You'd use that term loosely. It's always been a confederation of states. Just read the Articles of Confederation. Okay? The United States of America is not the same as the United States, the name of the federal government. So when we talk about the power that the federal government has, it's going to be listed in Article 1, Section 8. Does the word immigration show up in the Constitution? It does not. How is it that the states have delegated the power to the federal government to immigrate? Well, the truth is they have not. Like the 10th Amendment says, the power not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution is reserved to the states and the people. If the southern states want to secure the southern border, they have the power and the authority to do so. And in my opinion, they should arrest anybody trying to interrupt that process. The federal government does not have that power. So does the federal government immigrate? Of course they do. We recognize that there are immigration laws. So where is the federal government immigrating into? Well, they're immigrating into the United States, not America. They're immigrating into the District of Columbia. Every single resident alien that comes to America on paper is residing in the District of Columbia all day. The tax code supports that understanding, and you'd have to see it. We have a state citizenship class that you can look at this and see this for yourself. So if immigration isn't a power that's delegated to the federal government, then what's going on? The federal government is doing their immigration in many of the states all over America. Okay, they're naturalizing people to become federal 14th Amendment citizens when they don't have to. Naturalization is not a power that's been delegated to the federal government. Oh, wait, I thought naturalization is in the Constitution. Well, that word is in the Constitution. Let me tell you what the power is that's delegated. That'd be Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. And that reads like this: to establish, listen carefully, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. That's the power that's been delegated to the federal government, is to establish a uniform rule. Why? So that naturalization would be the same in all the states. But the Congress in 1803 or somewhere in there, Congress had delegated that this part of the natural rule, or the uniform rule, would be that this would be a state function in a state court of record or a common law court in the states. That's where naturalization would occur, and that's where it has occurred until the federal government came up with their citizen. So that's all that they have. That's the only power the federal government has with respect to naturalization. Okay. But again, I'm saying the federal government's not usurping its authority, because it is naturalizing in the District of Columbia. It's the states are derelict in their duty. So immigration is a state power. Okay. How about drugs? The word drugs show up in the Constitution ever, anywhere? Nope. The word drugs doesn't show up. Are there drug laws? Alcohol, tobacco, firearms? Is there the Food and Drug Administration? What the hell's going on there? Well, the Constitution delegates to the federal government that they have exclusive legislative authority in all cases whatsoever. So they are regulating food and drugs and everything in the District of Columbia. And of course, their citizens worldwide, they are also regulating those citizens worldwide, not only in their financial affairs, but even in drugs. This is why the federal government is, when they create treaties with other countries, drugs and drug laws are part of it, because the federal government wants to regulate their citizens worldwide. Drugs are some of those things. Okay. So does a state citizen have those obligations? They do not. Do the people that are handling these things on the ground level understand these concepts? They do not. How many hours do they have in understanding the Constitution? Sorry, not part of the agenda. Ignorant people are very easy to control. And of course, the order followers are some of the most ignorant people that are around. Why is that? Listen, in government, in the military, and certainly in the federal government, I don't know about other state governments, but state governments are governments, so I put that in general terms. Okay. Governments give out information as a need-to-know basis. Okay. If you don't need to know, you will not be educated about anything that you don't need to know about. So the people that you interact with in, with government are not going to be knowledgeable about the Constitution or the statutes or codes that govern them. None of that. That's not the way it usually works. It's only when you work your way up of leadership that you end up getting that kind of information, because they need to know, because they're governing in a certain way. I know, because I've gone down to the federal building in Boston where they do passports, and I was talking to the person on the other side of the glass, and they were trying to tell me that something was obligated, and I knew that it wasn't, because I'd seen the statute and codes that governs it. And I said, can you show me the statute or code that says that and governs what you're saying? And they're like, no, I don't have that information. I said, would you go get your manager? And of course they go get the manager. And of course the manager comes out, and then all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of other employee people coming out because they can't believe someone's called the manager, and then he comes out, and I said, do you have the statute or the code that governs this passport process? I think it's Title 22 or something like that. And he says, no, we don't. He said, no, he didn't. I said, are you suggesting, you wanting me to understand that in this multi-million-dollar building that we had built here, that nobody in this building has the code, the statute and code that governs the activity in this building? Really? That's what you want me to believe? He said, sir, could you keep it down? Would you come over here to this other room where we can be behind closed doors? And I said, sure, no problem. We'll go over there. And so we stopped scaring all the sheeple, and we went over to the other room. And I said, listen, are we going to submit these documents with this and get what we're needing? He says, yep, we're going to do that. I said, like, okay, great. He says, well, we'll let you know if we can get you the passports and all that stuff. I said, okay. He says, we'll give you a call, tomorrow or whatever. It's like, all right, that's fine. So we left. We were driving back up to New Hampshire, and we get the call on the cell phone. It's like, yep, well, you can come down and pick up the passports tomorrow. I was like, all right, great. See, again, if you don't, one of the principles of dealing with government is it's important for you to look up statutes and codes that govern the government, because then you're going to be in the know. You're going to know what their limitations are, and you're going to know how they're empowered. So you must take it upon yourself to understand those things. And listen, I'm not very smart. I have my capacity of comprehension is not that great. I have to read something and then read it again and then read it in context and like mull it over. That's the work I have to do for comprehension. Why? Well, it's the way I wasn't a reader growing up. I didn't have to. I watched TV. So my reading comprehension isn't that good. I have a friend, another friend who's brilliant. He can read something once, got all the comprehension in there. Like, wow. And then he'll tell you where there have grammatical errors or whatever the deal is. Like, wow, this guy's very smart, things like that. So don't worry that you struggle to understand things. Just push yourself. It's really important. So anyway, so drugs aren't in the Constitution, but how are they governing drugs in the District of Columbia? Which brings us to another topic. Then we talked about this before, and that is, firearms, guns, ammunition, all those things. How is it that most people would not believe or understand how the federal government can have federal gun laws or regulate firearms while the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed? That's because people who think that or feel that way do not understand the power that the federal government has. Okay. And so that's why they don't understand how the federal government could be still upholding the Constitution, even though they have federal gun laws. Why? Because federal gun laws are for federal citizens, U.S. citizens, okay, and resident aliens, and federal gun laws are certainly within the District of Columbia. But those federal gun laws are relevant even in the states for their citizens. That's the reality. So if you're going to fill out federal forms and things like that, you're going to have to make sure that if you're, just fill them out accordingly if you're a federal citizen, if you're a U.S. citizen that way. But if you're not a federal citizen, and I mean a 14th Amendment citizen, then you either have to fill out the form the way it is with an explanatory statement explaining the differences of definitions of the term United States and that you're not a 14th Amendment citizen and all that, or you have to fill it out as a non-resident and alien. Because these documents typically are signed under penalty of perjury as true and correct. And so you have to make sure they're true and correct, because otherwise you'll be perjuring yourself. Okay. So it's important to understand those concepts. So how do federal gun laws coexist with the Second Amendment? Federal gun laws are in the District of Columbia. That would be Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and the 14th Amendment citizen, no matter where he is. If that 14th Amendment citizen is in the state, they'll be subject to federal gun laws. That's the reality of it. That otherwise, if this is the same way, if I'm wrong about this, if I'm wrong about the IRS and all that, then we are captured people and we should escape immediately. And we're at war and therefore escalate it. But I don't think that's the case. I think this is administrative, and you can do a better job, and certainly a peaceful job, of making sure that what you're signing and what you're saying about you and about your situation is true and correct. And, certainly under penalty of perjury and all that. And that's part of why we do what we do with the State Department, with our passport process, and with, of course, IRS. Because it doesn't make sense that a government can tax your labor when that's a right. The fruit of your labor is a right. How is it? There has to be a choice, and there is a choice. You get to choose where you are a citizen and what you're a citizen of. And most people are claiming they're a citizen of the District of Columbia, a United States citizen, or a U.S. 14th Amendment citizen. Most people are doing that. And so that's where most people are. So I wanted to just to talk about that. So somebody had sent me. They were talking. They'd make it reference to. I had posted something that you can understand the definition of the term of United States either by statute or code that defines the term, or usually you can look at the term United States and sometimes, usually you can understand what the definition is by the context. Not always, but generally speaking. Like, for example, the term United States in the 13th Amendment says any place subject to their jurisdiction, referring to the states. That's plural. That would mean the term United States in the 13th Amendment is the states of America. But when you get to the 14th Amendment, it says any place subject to its jurisdiction, because the federal government is a single entity and is referred to in the singular. Its, its courts, it's not their courts. So it's always singular. That's how you can tell the federal government. So again, context plays into some of that stuff. But this person wrote and says, what happens when a Supreme Court decision, an example, Sims versus United States, and I was just looking through some of that. I don't know what that says. Treats a sovereign state as if it's a federal state. That's an interesting, and I was reading a little bit, and it looked like there was a state that was had an income tax liability. Why? Because the state has a tax ID number and all that stuff. Listen, states are corporations too. They obtain tax ID numbers and things like that. That state government and their people are in the federal zone. They think they're in the federal zone, but they're ignorant as well. They don't realize that they're separate and they don't have to do that stuff. But that's what they believe, because that's what the certified IRS, the IRS agents, the accountants, certified public accountants, are telling them, like as if they understand the laws, the tax laws. Listen, certified public accountants are not tax attorneys, not the same category of people, not knowledgeable of tax law. They're knowledgeable of tax rules in that jurisdiction, and they don't know anything else. Okay? Don't be so hard on them. But that's because those that know or should have known are in those situations, and they just bring them all in the federal zone because everybody agrees to that stuff because nobody's looking up those terms. Wait a minute, Christopher, you're not suggesting that you're smarter than all those people out there? Well, yes, I am. No, I'm not. It doesn't make much difference that it's not about me whether I'm smart or this. So listen, all I do is handle, like, can people be that stupid? Of course people can be that stupid. We know the masses are generally stupid. Even in the Bible, the masses are referred to as sheep. God's people are sheep, I mean, that's being led about by a shepherd in some capacity, not too bright. Listen, and that may be a term of endearment. But the bottom line is, if you just look at an attorney and you want to find out whether an attorney is smart or not, and just because an attorney has knowledge in a certain area doesn't mean that they're smart or that they have a lick of sense. And look, it's just knowledge. Listen, we're in the information age and stupidity is rampant. Now listen, I love people and I can't stand them. Now, it's duplistic. It's sad because, look, I don't want to live with anybody. It's challenging enough to live with my wife, and I love her. And look, it's challenging enough to live with me. I'm very sensitive. I don't want people living around me. I want to live far away in the country. I want to go out front and go to the bathroom in the front yard. That's what I want to do. I don't want my neighbors seeing me, and I mean, that's the way I am. And so, if you don't want to be bothered by your neighbor, then go live out in the country. So, but the idea is, listen, if an attorney wore a mask during COVID, that is an idiot. Now, I'm offending everybody, I'm sure, because, listen, when you're doing sawing and you got dust and you're doing something, then wear a certain mask that protects it from major big dust. But all that's in you is going into the room. It's not protecting the room. It's just protecting from some dust up your nose. And then take your mask off, blow your nose, and see how it works. That's an N95 mask. And if you're doing paint or you have fumes, have the proper mask for paint and fumes. If you want to understand how bacterial scientists wear on their face, you'll see they're wearing masks on their face when they're dealing with bacteria and whatever that is. But if you want to look at a virologist or a viral scientist, look on YouTube, look up pictures. They got hazmat suits on, people. If an attorney wore a mask, he is stupid. One, he doesn't care or understand how if he's obeying his government, he's not worth his salt. He doesn't understand these matters. He doesn't understand the limitations of government. Why does he not understand? Well, he was educated in law school, of course. Does he understand? I mean, if he doesn't understand how to secure his own rights, what hope do you have that he won't secure you, that he's going to secure your rights? That being said, I'm not saying every single attorney is an idiot, because listen, I'm guarantee you there were attorneys that were presenting themselves in court, telling the government, we cannot be on aircrafts and wear masks and be obligated. And some judge said, nope, you can't impose that on people. And that's how it stopped, because somebody had a brain to understand how these matters work. That's how it always is interrupted, smart people. We hold truth to be self-evident. And I'm going to just encourage you to hold yourself to a higher standard of expectation, that you can know what your rights are and how to secure them. It's okay. You can figure it out. It's simple enough for children to understand. And our children should understand these matters, okay? It's a thing, So anyway, so the idea of the Constitution and the limitation of the federal government is limitless in the District of Columbia. Now, I remember listening to Alan Dershowitz. Who's Alan Dershowitz? He was a professor, or is a professor from Harvard Law. He had the belief that the federal government could do whatever it wanted unless the Constitution said it could not. Now, I remember when I was listening to him say that, I thought he was a complete idiot, maybe even a communist. If he meant in their jurisdiction, he is spot on right. But they cannot do whatever they want in the states, and certainly not to state citizens. The Constitution limits him. And here's another thing. The way the Constitution is written is that, like it says in the 10th Amendment, the power not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution is reserved to the states and people. So the truth is that the Constitution is the only thing the federal government, and in your state, the state constitution is the only thing that they can do. It's not they can do whatever they want unless the Constitution says they can't. It's not written that way. There is certain power delegated to governments, and it is written that way. And then there are statutes and codes that support that. And then there are statutes and codes that govern, that define how a government's going to govern itself by the Constitution. And they have to be congruent with the Constitution, whether we're talking state or federal. Does that make sense? So anyway, that's all I want to share about that. So getting back to that court case there, if you don't understand the definition of the term United States, and you don't have to understand that the states, listen, states are sovereign, sort of, as long as the state government comes into the federal zone and gets their money, or they believe they're in the United States, i.e. the District of Columbia, then they'll be governed accordingly. And that's what that court case. And I agree with the IRS. They had the authority to go in and do exactly what they did because the state empowered them to do such. And I don't mean the state legislature, but the state government, the one that deals with the people every day. And so anyway, and we handle this concept in the class. I won't. Let me see. We did get some. We did get some questions. We get questions from people all over the world. A lot of from Canada, some from Australia, and things like that. Now, I typically am not handling subject matter for Canadian citizens or citizens of those Canadian provinces, and or those provinces in Australia. See, haven't confirmed this. I have talked about this with Canadians and Australians, that Australians, both are common law type of countries. Um, but Canada is not a country, just like America is not a country. Canada is also a union of provinces. That's their states. Those provinces are countries and their states. And um, in Australia, I believe it's the same thing. Australia is a union of a sort made up of these states within Australia. And now, and just like Europe, Europe has a European Union, and those are states, they're countries within that. Where it would matter for me with respect to what they're doing is Americans that are in these different countries conducting their business affairs and things like that, because those countries have treaties with the United States government, they have to abide by certain United States law dealing with federal 14th Amendment citizens, those citizens that have those tax liabilities, and of course, resident aliens. Now, when an alien comes into the District of Columbia on paper, depending on the type of visa they have, they may or may not be able to work, okay, and make money. If they do work and they're allowed to work in the District of Columbia on paper, even though they're throughout the states all over, they there are limitations and there are specific things as a resident alien. Okay. Now, when that resident alien travels back home into the country that they're from, they still have a tax obligation on all of their income, even where they went, because they're in the District of Columbia on paper. So even though they're back in their own country and they're working in, or getting money in some capacity, the federal government wants a piece of that money too. That's because we're so honorable and we have such, it's disgusting. Okay. Most countries in the world don't handle their people that way. I think there's one or two. And we educate countries to do this kind of vile um, legislation. So, anyway, that's one of the things from Australia. Someone was talking about that. Um, it said, someone said, let's see here. Person says they live in New Mexico and they own two properties. I'm wondering if allodial title is possible in the state. Allodial title, allodial title is a type of title, if you will, but I mean it's not. It's like a state of a title. It's not an actual title like someone issues it. Okay, it means it's an unalienable title. And so out west, they're going to deal with the Bureau of Land Management. In the east of Mississippi or in the colonies, they'll deal with those original charters. So it won't be the Bureau of Land Management in the east, but out west, it would be more like that. Um, Someone had said they're interested in the idea of quieting the title and possibly move the mortgage lien off the house. Typically, if you don't find out if the mortgage company has title, which you're going to have to do some forensic research, um, you're not going to secure the property while it doesn't belong to you. As long as it belongs to the bank, then you're going to pay on that, or they'll take possession of it. You have to find out if there's deficiencies in that before you can move that way. Let's see what someone else says here. Someone was talking about finances. Says it says I hired someone to start and manage a small high-end rental car business for me. He was incompetent, sad to say, stuck making hefty car payments. So he's making payments on a rental car. So I'm taking possession of the cars that he bought me, but they were very bad deals. Maybe, anyway, goes on to that. He says he's stuck. The bottom line is whoever has title to the car owns the car. So if you're making payments on it, give them the car, get out of it. Now, once they take possession of the property, then, whatever the negotiation was for the loan amount, however that is, you can discharge that because now it's unsecured and you can challenge the contract or the nature of that debt. But it's not, but if you don't own the car, then you have no title, and therefore it's not unsecured. It's secured. So I would give up that and then discharge that if you cared to do so. All right. Well, we're coming down to the wire. I don't know if we had any. I don't know that we have any chat. There was a very quiet group. Maybe there's only Leanne in the group. so I can't tell. But I'm glad that you're there. I have your email, and I know you're waiting on me. I am still finishing some of that stuff up. Um, we got behind quite a bit this week, and so I have that. I am working on that presently, but I have to email it over. Stuff that I wanted to do. So thanks for your patience in that. Um, and it's good. And I'm trying to bring Amma up to handle a lot of the day-to-day stuff so that I can deal with a lot of the specific things that clients have on their plate. And I'm blessed to do that. And she's awesome and has been stepping up. And so we're going to keep having her do some of the more mundane things, the day-to-day stuff that I've had to handle. And it's been challenging because of the way that they've handled us at the office and not being able to, and even doing these kind of things there. Um, Someone asks us, how does a naturalized U.S. citizen become a state citizen? Well, we have a lot of clients that are, you'll do this process in the same way. You'll use your naturalization certificate instead of a birth certificate. And then you'll inform the federal government that passport that you had before had errors concerning your proper citizenship and such as that. And your original state citizenship is on your naturalization certificate. Whatever state that was, it's actually on that certificate. So that was your first citizenship. That's where you had your habitation and domicile. If you move to a different state, now you have a different citizenship, but your original naturalization certificate has that original citizenship on there. And then, of course, you'll deal with the idea that you filled out paperwork in error. You'll make those correct those errors in your passport process. But it's something that we do all the time. We are working on the naturalization process in a number of locations in California and Florida, as well as in New Hampshire. And so I covet your prayers for that. That's really important. That will be a game changer. And we're looking forward to seeing that come back to the states where that authority is. And, we have Supreme Court cases in the states that acknowledge that that's a fact and is a real, the way the things used to be. And so we're going to be doing that again. So this person says, I tried to give my bank the W-8W9, but my bank doesn't keep paper forms on file. That's okay. Just email them that for the record. And so, look, if they don't keep paper files, let them scan it in, whatever they want to do, but they can just put it in your record. They have paperwork because you filled out forms to open the account. So wherever those forms are, you might need to scan your W-9 first and your W-8 following. Those should be signed and dated. And then you might have a little cover letter, but you don't have to. Just upload the W-8 and W-9. Tell them where can you upload that on your account or in your file. So if they don't keep paper, that's okay. Send it electronically. And again, all your responsibility is to give it to them. So I don't know that I believe that they don't keep paper forms. I don't believe that, but that might be their sentiment. That's fine. It does take up a lot of space, doesn't it, that paper? Okay, well, thank you so much for your questions, and we'll see you possibly next week. Now, let's see. I think we're going to do one more of these next week. Great if I was in the office next week. That would be just stunning. You can keep that in your prayers. But I wanted to look at the calendar and see, because the 21st, yeah, so next week we'll do another call on Wednesday. Well, it's a call, I'm doing this live on YouTube. It's very convenient because we have done stuff, and once we get back in the office, we'll do GoToMeeting and get that all set up, and we'll do both. That way we can talk to people, and that'll be helpful. But the 21st, I have a date, and I'm taking my wife to the jazz club to see Spyro Gyra. That'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, Spyro Gyra. Won't that be good? Right there. That'll be good on the 21st of August. Things that'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, get to go out to dinner and get to enjoy Spyro Gyra. Man, that has got to be so sweet to see Spyro Gyra live. I have seen them live years ago in Omaha, Nebraska. That was awesome. So anyway, I digress. Thank you so much. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe, please, if you haven't. Out of all of our subscribers, I think they say that the views are more than your subscribers, or it's People will watch things and they won't subscribe. But if you do subscribe, then you'll see when these come out, and you might be able to participate in these kind of live broadcasts. Okay. They say Megadeth. Let's say right. Somehow there'll be some energy. Spyro Gyra over here, Megadeth's over here. That's just great. Music will be in the air. Won't that be awesome? So, all right. Well, thank you so much. I love you all. God bless you, and take care. You know you're the best. And we'll see you later. Okay. All right. See you then.